So I am squashing them together and I am giving you my August/September reading wrap up. Hello, welcome to the Christy Grace Scarlet Pen YouTube channel. If this is your first time, welcome. If this is not your first time, welcome back. I'm so excited to see any of you here, even though technically I can't see you right now, but I will see you in the comments below or as a like. If you do want to subscribe to my channel, you can absolutely hit that button down below and get notified when I release a video. But if you don't know who I am, then I am a writer. I have my debut novel coming out in February 2021, which is really soon. I am currently waiting on editor's notes for that and recently announced that I am partnering with A21, the organization which is fighting to abolish human trafficking and modern day slavery. If you want to know more about that, I will pop a link down below so that you can get to know about my partnering with them. I am giving 10% of every book sold in February to A21 to help in the fight. It's really important that we are stepping out in that, and I have announced that all throughout October. I am talking about that and including the Global Freedom Summit as well. So basically, I am running through with you guys a reading wrap up. I was trying to get, I had an August TBR and I ended up reading hardly anything on that list. But what I did manage to get rolled over between August and September. So I am squashing them together and I am giving you my August/September reading wrap up. So basically what I thought and what I actually got around to reading. It was a bit of a mixed bag in this latest TBR. I have an October reading list, which I did a really fun M&M video with a little bit crappy quality, but it doesn't matter. It was fun, so it was good, which you can actually watch right now. It's up there to see what I'm reading in October. But in September and August, I had a few books on my list. I had quite a lot of books on my list and I ended up with a lot, reading a lot less than what I actually got there. I'm holding on to this book. I'm trying not to bring it in frame. I should have done this a little bit differently. It doesn't matter, it's all good. But one of the books that I read about 5. So I got 5 done in 2 months. I had a very tight deadline for my own book, and so I didn't have a lot of time for reading. I'm hoping that in October I get a bit more time, but we'll see. I know that the light is weird in this room right now. I don't know if that made a difference. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna be shiny if I'm gonna be shiny, so too bad, doesn't matter, whatever. All right, first book up on the list. So I actually read Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson, and I don't know whether this is going to be back to front or not, but it doesn't really matter. So Steelheart was a story about 10 years ago, there was a big event that happened and only certain people got superpowers, and those people decided that because they had the superpowers that they were going to rule over everybody else, and they are brutal. And so basically this is the first book in the Reckoners, and they are the people who are trying to take down these epics with the superpowers, and Steelheart is the first book. Really enjoyed this book. I love superheroes in comic books and, like, you know, those sorts of things, like the Marvel movies and DC and whatever. I'm all for that stuff. So this for me was a little bit like, yes please, when I heard about it. And I really enjoyed it. If you want my full reviews for any of these books, you can go to my Goodreads profile, because I gave a bit more detailed responses and reviews when I finished it, so it would have been more fresh in my mind. But I gave this one 4 stars out of 5. I really liked it. The reason for 4 stars was because I really wanted to know a little bit more about Steelheart and his background, and so yeah, that would have been really cool. If you haven't read this one, I would recommend it. It was really good, and it was I enjoyed the point of view, I enjoyed the story, and I actually have the rest of the series as well to work through. So I am going to be working through those. One of them made it onto my TBR, which is really fun for October. But yes, it was really good. I really enjoyed that book. The next one that made it onto my list was Defier, The Girl Who Stood by Mandy Fender. This book was sort of in the halfway, I would say, for me. The premise was really great. It's actually the first book in a series. And the premise was really, really good. I loved the idea. I loved where it could have gone. But overall, this book felt incredibly rushed. It does appear to be self-published, which is great because that's what I'm self-publishing. I love self-published books. They're great. But this book felt really rushed. I think that because it is a 3-part, like the first part in a series, I feel like it was just the reason that it existed was to introduce the world and the characters, and the actual story doesn't start until the next book. But when books are like that, it sort of can either be rushed and feel like a cop-out, or it can be really interesting and really good. This one, I again loved the premise, loved the idea of the characters, and the characters were pretty good. But because it was so, you know, there's fast paced and then there's just way too rushed. It's just, that's what this one was for me. The editing was really unusual. I don't know if that was the style or if just grammatically it was just not edited properly. And the climactic moments felt very anticlimactic. They weren't fleshed out. They were the most interesting parts in the book. And they were like 2 sentences long, 2 paragraphs long. Which was really disappointing. It was the most interesting part of the book, which is why I feel like moving on to the next book, which I believe is called Sparrow, that book might be a little bit better, because it was leading to that premise and that moment. I feel like it probably could have just jumped straight into Sparrow, and jumped straight into the world that we are introduced to at the very end. I also love Christian books. I don't think there are very many that are too preachy. There are some. This book, I feel like they went too hard and too often. You can get your point across. You could have gotten the point across with way less of smash you over the head every 5 sentences. I again love Christian books, love Christian themes, but it just was so often and so hard, that I thought that if they'd softened it a little bit and pulled it back a little bit, you could get the same point across, but not quite so intense, I guess. So this one made it 3 stars. I gave it 3 because I really liked the premise. So the actual book itself, the writing, the editing, the fast, like the rushed pace of the story, that for me was very low, but the premise was really good and the bones of the story was there. So I did give it a 3 out of 5. Something unusual that made it onto my list was Unsinkable, Debbie Reynolds' autobiography sort of book. I don't really do a lot of nonfiction, although now I feel like I really want to. I have some in my collection, I just never end up reading them. But I heard about this one because I watched a YouTube interview with Debbie when she was promoting the book. And it sounded really interesting. So I bought it and read it. It was really good. It was so interesting. I'm a little bit of an old movie TV person, and so a lot of the names that she mentioned and the people I actually recognized and was excited to hear stories about, particularly some of the weirder stories. They were really interesting, and she does overshare a little bit, probably for my liking at some points, but her life was really crazy, unusual, incredible, sad, just all over the shop. But I love Debbie Reynolds in so many things. And so I really wanted to sort of hear a lot of her story. This was sort of, I think this one was towards the end of her life. She shared a lot about a lot of different things. I gave that 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book. It was fantastic. And it was a really different pace for me as opposed to a lot of fiction. So yeah. I only have 2 books left. I told you I didn't get through very many, but that's okay. I'm telling you anyway. Again, if you want to check out my reviews in a little bit more detail, particularly this next one, it's a very detailed review. You can on my Goodreads profile, Christy Gray Scarlet Pen, just have a look for me, and you can get a little bit more insight if you really want to. Otherwise, you can just take what I'm saying in my video. So yeah, it's up to you. This next book actually became my favorite book of all time. I've never had a favorite book. I have had favorite authors. I have never had a favorite book of all time. This became that book for me, and it is AD 30 by Ted Dekker. It's the story of a woman in AD 30, and she was going on an adventure to save her town, her village, by making a deal with King Herod. And she's with a couple of slaves from her town, her village, because her dad was the king, but she was actually out of wedlock, and so it was a lot of shame, because back in that day, it was especially shameful. It's in the middle of Palestine, Arabia. It was really intense, but along her journey to make an alliance with Herod, she meets a man called Yeshua, or Jesus, and he is preaching all sorts of really crazy things. He's talking about all sorts of stuff that people don't talk about and they don't really know and understand, but it seems really interesting. So it was so good. This book was very long for me, and I feel like it had two distinct parts. Part one was Mavia is the main character's name, and her main adventure, I feel like, is in part one, and then her adventure with Jesus is in part two. And so it was, it's hard for me to find the words for this book, and that's why I would advise you to go see my Goodreads review. But it made me see who I was in a completely different light. It made me see Jesus in a totally different light. Apart from the fact that it was really exciting adventure, like it was intense, trips across the desert and, crazy, intense, exciting adventure, but also just so profound and so meaningful. And I've never had a book or even a movie or anything touch me so deeply, in all sorts of ways, in my heart, my emotions, my spirit, just everything. And so this book for me is just the ultimate, and I got a chance to read through that, I believe, in August. I gave it a 5-star, of course. Why would you be surprised with a review like that? But I recently, only just yesterday actually, got the follow-up book, which is AD 33. And if you know anything about Jesus and his life, you'll know that Jesus died at age 33, and that's AD 33. So it'll be super intense, I think. But we'll have to see. I have to see. I get to read it, and it jumps to the top of my reading pile for October, because it just was phenomenal. And there were a few things that were left for the second book, so I'm really excited to read the next one. And this book, again, best book I've ever read, my favorite book of all time. The final book that I was able to read in August and September was a book that I had never heard of before in my life until I saw another booktuber talking about it and saying how great it was, and I went out and bought it because it sounded really interesting and it was different to what I normally read, and I found that I really liked it. And it is called I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Marine Gu. It is the story of Desi, and by the way, if you are an I Love Lucy fan like I am, named after Desi Arnaz, who played Ricky Ricardo in I Love Lucy. That little tidbit for me was just awesome. Anyway, her dad loves K-dramas, and so she decides to formulate a plan of how to get the perfect guy with a K-drama formula. And it's a rom-com book. I don't usually read rom-com books. I usually stick with either fantasy or crime, mystery, suspense books, but I'm so glad that I decided to read it. It was such a cool, again, change of pace. But it was so fun. It was so cute and so nice, and her point of view being first person made it feel so personal, almost like I'm reading her diary, or like, it was just really fun. And so even though I'm not the desired audience for this book, I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. It was cute and it was fun, and it didn't have, dramatic crimes and murders to solve in it. And so it was a really nice change of pace. I gave that a 5 stars as well because I just thoroughly enjoyed that, and it was really good. So I didn't really get through too many in August and September. That's only 5 books. Again, if you want to see my full reviews, go ahead and you can go to my Goodreads profile. I'll put a link below if you want to just click on that link and go have a look and see what I reviewed. I also have a whole bunch of other reviews, not just for August and September, but I really enjoyed those books, and it sort of was my re-emerging into reading August and September, because I hadn't read for quite a long time. I used to love reading and I didn't really get to do much of it recently, and so now I'm excited not only to read because it helps my own writing, but also because I love stories. It's really fun when you can find a story that touches you in all sorts of emotional, and you get all the feels. Those books are the best, those stories are the best, and so hopefully in this October month I will get through some awesome ones as well, and I can give you a reading wrap up too. Don't forget, you guys, if you want to follow me, my writing, my journey, any of my Booktube, anything like that, I have all the social medias. You can subscribe to my YouTube right now if that's where you're watching, or you can like, comment, let me know what you read in August or September, or what you thought about the books if you have read any of those that I mentioned today. I have a Christy Grace Scarlet Pen website, which is now a .com, which is really fun, and so it is all happening in the month of October. I hope that you are interested in learning about Age 21 and abolishing slavery in Crime Prevention Month, because that's what it is in the filming and hopefully release of this video. It is October, it is Crime Prevention Month, and we are standing in the fight against injustice and against trafficking and modern day slavery. Hope you have an incredible rest of your day, night, morning, week, month, year, whatever, whenever you are watching right now. And don't forget, you can subscribe to my newsletter and get your own self-publishing checklist, or you can get my Hannah Carmichael Chronicle ebook for free as a download, while also keeping up with all the incredible stuff that I have going on with my writing. I hope that you guys have an amazing month of October. I'll see you in the adventures.